Welcome to Animania Chronicles, where we dive deep into the captivating worlds of anime, dissecting stories, unraveling characters, and sharing our passion for all things animated. In this fifth installment of our The Rising of the Shield Hero review series, tensions rise as Naofumi faces new threats and difficult choices. With the stakes higher than ever, the bonds between our heroes are tested. Join us as we explore the pivotal moments, emotional depth, and intense action that define this critical chapter in Naofumi's journey. On top of that, he added an invisible sword that would be useful in fighting unseen enemies and special overpowered gloves that could push anything, even the carriage. While resting for the day, they discovered Melty approaching them, and Naofumi wondered how the hell she found them. Philo tried telling him that Melty was a good person, unlike the rest of the royal family, but Naofumi couldn't possibly care less. Just then, Melty told him to return to the castle immediately to see the king, but Naofumi refused instantly. Looking to try a different approach, she told him to apologize to the king and make peace before he lost the rest of his earnings, but Naofumi told her that he would rather vomit his guts. As Naofumi looked at her security, he thought they looked exactly the same way they appeared on the day he was set up in the castle. At that moment, a soldier began charging to slay her, but Naofumi managed to protect her and shoved him away. Immediately, the soldier began accusing him of abducting the princess and commanded the other soldiers to attack him. Raphtalia began striking, kicking, and smacking the soldiers, and Philo transformed into a bird and sat on some of them as Naofumi continued blocking their attacks. Before long, they kicked all the soldiers to the ground, but having seen enough, the lead soldier commanded the rest of them to retreat. By the following day, they began to reveal altered footage all across the cities, telling everyone that Naofumi had abducted the princess and declared them fugitives, giving them no other choice but to hide in the mountains. That night, looking at the rosary he had found on one of the soldiers, Raphtalia told him that it belonged to the church in the capital, making him realize that the church was responsible for this setup. Angered by this realization, Naofumi wondered just how many enemies they had to deal with at the same time. However, Melty told him that the king was innocent but suspected that her sister was responsible instead. Even so, Naofumi had no desire to believe her delusions and said that there was no saint in the castle. Melty tried asking him to visit the king for the final time, convinced that they would finally make peace, but Naofumi walked away, realizing she was only a naive kid. After a few hours, he returned to the camp and said that they must leave for a new country, but wondered where Melty would go. She told him that she would return to the capital to see the king, but Naofumi told her that it was the worst possible idea she could ever have, as she would be killed instantly. He told her that she could only be safe by his side and promised to protect her in the meantime. So the next day, they abandoned their wagon and began traveling over the mountains. That evening, as they decided to rest, Raphtalia asked Naofumi why he had chosen a different country than earlier agreed upon. So he told her that it was heavily protected and thought it would be a much safer place for them to hide. That night, Naofumi decided to ask Melty why he'd never heard of her mother. Melty told him that she was the queen of another country and was a superior ruler over the king who married into her royal family. Realizing that even the king was a useless fake opportunist, Naofumi began laughing at him. Just then, he sensed a presence over the mountains, so they started walking again. After arriving at a dead end, they realized that several soldiers were already waiting on top of the mountain. Naofumi suggested that they take a different path, but as they returned, a rock crumbled, and Melty nearly fell off, but Naofumi caught her instantly. Unluckily, the soldiers discovered their whereabouts, so they began running towards the edge of the mountain. As they arrived at the cliff, Naofumi discovered that it was a dead end. Just then, Itsuki appeared before them and told Naofumi to release Melty, but he told them that he never abducted her in the first place. When Motoyasu said that it was a big lie, Melty began telling them that she had asked Naofumi to protect her after realizing there was a plot to kill her and asked that they unite as a team. But Mine said that she had been brainwashed by Naofumi's shield and that the church in the capital had proof that the shield hero was the devil incarnate. This all made sense to Motoyasu, and he thought this was why he could neither have Philip nor Raphtalia. Raphtalia tried saying that Naofumi was innocent, but Ren told him to release Melty as proof that she wasn't brainwashed. Afraid for herself, Melty told them that she would be killed for sure if she returned, but Mine began persuading her to follow them. Coming to a decision, Naofumi told them that he would rather protect the girl as he could not trust Mine to keep her safe since she was desiring to be first in line to the throne and would not hesitate to kill the poor girl. At his command, Philo transformed into the bird and began running away. Using his air shield, she climbed on the mountain and started flying off to the other side. But Motoyasu flung a spelled shackle at her foot, causing her to transform and spill everyone towards the ground. Unluckily, Philo fell on the wrong side, and Mine thought they had some leverage. Raising her hand, she grew a light ball and launched it high above the mountains, casting light all around them. With Philo far off and the heroes arriving, Naofumi realized they had nowhere to run. As Motoyasu held on to Philo like a worthless, disgusting perv, he said that he asked an alchemist to make the shackle specifically for her so she would remain an angel forever. Melty began casting a spell and narrowly missed him with her blast, telling him that she would fry his face in her next attempt, but Mine launched a flaming ball that Naofumi managed to block. At the sight of this, Itsuki wondered why she was trying to eliminate her own sister, but Mine said that Melty has a death wish and she intends to grant it, so she continued launching more fireballs, immediately drank a potion to increase her powers, and fired flaming bullets relentlessly. Rafia told Naofumi that she had a plan to rescue Foe, so Naofumi offered to create a distraction and summon his Rage Shield. At that instant, as Naofumi began to burn with fiery power, Mine commanded her soldiers to attack at once. They launched arrows at him, but he blocked them with his shield. As Mine prepared a mighty flaming ball to eliminate them, Rafia appeared from behind and stabbed her with the invisible sword, causing it to vanish. Foe then knocked the disgusting perv with a mighty punch. At the commander's order, the soldiers started charging towards Naofumi, but his flames exploded with a mighty force, destroying the mountain around them. After the smoke cleared, Naofumi told Ren to open his useless eyes to understand the setup and toss the rosary at his feet before leaving. Later that night, after Naofumi unlocked Foe's shackle, they noticed a stranger beside them and realized that she had appeared at the village during Naofumi's animal race with Mayasu. Before Rafia could draw her sword, Melty told her that the stranger works for the queen. The stranger told Naofumi that she was happy to see him again, and he remembered that she was the lady he came across in the castle. She told him that he must see the queen immediately before the situation grew worse, and said that only the queen could restore peace to the country. So Naofumi decided to look at a map, wondering how far away the queen's city was. Before long, Rafia sensed a terrible smell, and they wondered where it was from, but did not realize that Mine was starting to burn the entire forest in a desperate attempt to smoke them out. At her command, her soldiers fired flaming arrows farther into the forest, hoping to make Naofumi take the blame for it. At the same time, in the forest, Naofumi and the girls watched the fire from a distance, and they finally realized that the ugly psycho must be responsible for it. So Naofumi suggested that they leave before the fires spread to them. By morning, Naofumi decided to buy food at a nearby village, hoping to discover some new piece of information. The merchant told him that it was impossible to leave the country as all the exits had been blocked. After joining the others, he told them that their safest option was to see the queen, as she was the only person who could protect them. A few days later, they arrived at a new region belonging to the demi-humans, and Melty told them that her friend was the lord of this region and thought he could help them sneak out of the country, since they were practically fugitives at this point. When Naofumi noticed that Rafia was sad, he wondered what might have happened to her. She told them that her village was nearby and that shortly after the waves, they were attacked by the king's soldiers and taken away as slaves. Just then, a man appeared before them. Naofumi and Rafia thought he was an enemy and were almost ready to eliminate him, but Melty told them that he was her friend. The man introduced himself as Reiknat and told them that he was the lord of this region, but Naofumi thought he was too ugly to be trusted. Reiknat told them that the area wasn't safe and invited them over to his mansion for better security. Inside his mansion, he told them that Mine had offered a huge reward for their execution and told them to rest for as long as they wanted. However, as they started having dinner, Naofumi told them that they must leave by morning before they were discovered. With several soldiers looking for them, he knew it was only a matter of time before their whereabouts were exposed. When they arrived inside the room, Naofumi watched the windows, afraid they would be surrounded while resting. Rafia promised to keep watch in the meantime and asked him to get some rest, but Melty was angry that he had been ignoring her. Hoping to cheer her up, Fo suggested that they take a walk around the mansion. Meanwhile, at the capital, the king discovered that Melty was yet to be found and commanded his army to turn the entire country upside down in search of her. As they left, Mind told the king that she would rescue her sister and return her home safely. But he had no idea that she was the devil incarnate. At Reiknot's mansion, with everyone else asleep, Melty decided to ask Naofumi if running far away was her best choice. She had several duties to attend to and was afraid of becoming the world's most useless princess. However, Naofumi told her that her survival was more important, as nothing else would matter if she were dead. As he took over night duty, he noticed that Rafia was having a nightmare and tried soothing her. He remembered that she used to have nightmares when she was younger and wondered if she was having the same nightmare. The following morning, they realized that Reiknot had been arrested by the king's army. Immediately, a maid told them that they must run away at once, as Reiknot was discovered to have housed them. So they began running down the hall with the soldiers looking for them. As two soldiers burst into the kitchens, they demanded to know where Naofumi was hiding, but the maid pretended to know nothing. At that moment, Melty appeared and introduced herself as the princess, commanding them to leave immediately. However, a man appeared before her, and the sight of his horrible face caused Rafia to grow angry, and she tried drawing her sword, but Naofumi stopped her. The Lord told Melty that he came here in hopes of finding her, but she thought his face was worse than his lies and told him to withdraw from the mansion at once. He asked where the shield hero was hiding, but Melty told him that he had escaped already and commanded him to escort her back to the capital. Sobi led her away. At the same time, Naofumi stopped Rafia from bursting outside in full assault mode, telling her that it would only put Melty in danger, so she returned her sword. With the soldiers gone, Naofumi and Rafia began screaming for Fo, afraid that she may have been taken away. However, when Naofumi screamed a powerful command, she cried from the pain of her burning crest, punishing her for disobeying her master. Naofumi wondered why she was hiding in the attic, so she told him that Melty had asked her to hide herself, and she had spent all day waiting to be found. After she discovered that Melty had been taken away, she tried hurrying to her rescue, but Rafia stopped her, afraid they would be putting her in more danger. Fo wondered if they would abandon her, but Naofumi told them that he had already promised to protect her and intended to keep that promise. At night, as they prepared for their rescue mission, Rafia remembered that she was taken away as a slave a few years ago and grew afraid of the memory. When Naofumi realized this, he wondered if she would stay behind while they rescued Melty, but she told him that she intended to confront her past. Just then, they discovered that the demi-humans were trying to invade the Lord's mansion, desperate to free Reiknot. Naofumi thought this was the perfect distraction and suggested sneaking into the mansion, so Fo began rushing up the mountain. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the Lord demanded to know where Naofumi was hiding, but Melty told him that she had no idea. The Lord thought she was making it up and decided to ask Reiknot for Naofumi's whereabouts, but Reiknot told him to kiss his white ass and got punched in the gut. The Lord told Melty that it was his sacred duty to punish her for taking sides with Naofumi, as he was considered to be the devil himself, and she realized that her plans had gone south. Outside the mansion, the soldiers began charging towards Fo, but Rafia jumped off, striking down the men before her and running after Naofumi before Fo blew the others away. As she arrived before the mansion, Rafia remembered the time she was locked up in a cell and shivered at the memory before continuing towards the Lord's chamber. After arriving at an underground chamber, Naofumi noticed that Rafia was greatly disturbed by her memories of this place and promised to help her find some closure after Melty had been rescued. As the soldiers appeared before them, Rafia charged to slay them, and Naofumi shielded a sword, allowing his snake to bite the soldier. With the knight close to getting weak, Naofumi told him that he would only give him the antidote if he revealed the Lord's chamber. At the same time, in the chamber, the faceless Lord was trying to back Melty into a corner, but a knight told him that the shield hero had invaded the mansion. Just then, Fo burst through the wall, knocking him away, and Rafia appeared for support. Thinking she was safe already, Melty tried hurrying to them, but the Lord caught her and threatened to slice her head off. However, Naofumi appeared at that moment, separating them with the shield, so Fo kicked him away, and Naofumi gave the knight his antidote. Seeing everyone, Melty tried playing tough and asked why they came to save her. Naofumi told her that he could never abandon her since he had already promised to keep her safe. Realizing they had definitely saved her from the ugly perv, she decided to thank them for the rescue. As the Lord drew his whip, threatening to execute them all, Raphia began approaching him with all defiance. Desperate to keep her away, he struck her with the whip, but she was unfazed and received every single lash without even a grunt before slashing off his whip as he fell like a useless coward. As she pointed her sword at his face, he begged her to spare his life, but she told him that he deserves worse than death for executing all her friends. Hearing her words, he realized that she was one of his prisoners. As she grew angry at the sight of his horrible face, she tried to end him, but he started begging for her forgiveness. When she looked ready to cut him like a piece of meat, Naofumi told her that killing him would not return her dead friends to life and said that she was better off letting go of the past, so she lowered her sword. However, the Lord thought he could exploit her weakness and drew his own sword. Realizing he could not overpower her, he ruffled her wound and knocked off her sword, narrowly missing her. But she grabbed her invisible sword and impaled his heart. Even so, he kicked her to the floor, saying that her kind deserved to be killed. Just then, he slipped on his whip and broke through the window, falling to his doom. At that moment, they thought he had entered Nirvana, and Raphtalia blamed herself for his death. However, Naofumi told her that he was already destined for his own fate. When Reichnaut appeared, happy to see everyone alive, Melty decided to heal his wound, and he suggested that they run away immediately. But Naofumi told him that they had unfinished business. Before long, they returned to the underground chamber, and Raphtalia told them that she was imprisoned in the cells along with her friends and only managed to survive. Naofumi thought the memories would be overwhelming and suggested that they leave immediately, but she refused and started heading inside. She remembered that after the waves destroyed her village, she had rallied for support to rebuild their homes, but the king's soldiers had ambushed them and taken her away as a prisoner, bringing them into these underground cells. As they walked through the chamber, they arrived at her former cell, and Raphtalia remembered that the ugly lord had enjoyed beating her up like worthless trash. But one day, she was forced to leave her friend Rana after being sold off to a slave merchant. The memories made her sad, and she knelt before the cell. At that moment, they realized that one slave was still trapped inside a cell, so Naofumi unlocked it to free the child. However, they soon discovered that another kid was locked up in another cell, so after freeing her, Melty began to heal her with magic. Before long, one more slave was discovered. After arriving inside his cell, Raphtalia realized that he was her old friend Keel. Happy to see him alive, she immediately freed him, but he had no memories of her. So she introduced herself and reminded him that she had once saved him from drowning. At this realization, he was happy to see her alive, having feared that she was already dead, and she held him close to her. She told him that she was now a fighter for the Shield Hero and that they came together to rescue him. Naofumi asked to see his wound and began to heal his injury, making him realize that he was truly the Shield Hero. Up until this moment, the Shield Hero had merely been a fairy tale to him, so he was excited to see him before his eyes. However, when he told Raphtalia that Rana would have loved to see him, she realized that Rana might already be dead and hurried off to her cell. When she arrived, she began to cry at the sight of her skeleton, sad that she could not see her one final time. To make her feel better, Naofumi suggested that they offer her a befitting burial, but Raphtalia told him that she felt guilty for her death as she was too weak to protect her friends. Keel began telling her that she was special and that he was only alive because she returned to rescue him. Even so, Raphtalia blamed herself for everyone's death, saying that her entire life was an embarrassment and that she did not deserve to be Naofumi's sword and to stand by his side. Naofumi thought this was nonsense and began telling her that he would have abandoned this world if she had not stayed by his side, as her presence had been the light to his darkness. Keel told her that she was his hero for becoming a skilled fighter, and Naofumi told her that the kids were only free because she led them into this underground to gain some closure. Raphtalia thanked Rana's soul for protecting her and promised to restore their village in her honor. That's it for today. Stay tuned for part 6 of our Rising of the Shield Hero review series. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the vast realms of anime. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned for more thrilling reviews and discussions. Until next time, keep exploring the boundless wonders of anime with us.